The exchange's main purpose is to help online brands discover the tactics and strategies that will lead to better customer retention. And too often we think of those as email, support, and loyalty programs. But product development is arguably the best retention tool in your toolbox, especially if you're selling high-value goods or low purchase frequency items. Today, we're talking all about product development, how to do it effectively, on time, and in a way that's going to give your marketing team the best product launches possible. Today, we have someone that I love nerding out about e-commerce with. We have Audrey Dubie, Ecom Ops and Product Development Manager at Moore and Giles. Welcome to the show, Audrey. How do you explore new product offerings? Like, are you looking at customer info, looking at sales data, surveying your customers? How should a product manager or a product development team find that next big idea?
Multiple sources. We do a little smattering of everything. So I particularly look at historical sales data, but more than just what sold and what didn't, we also look at product categories. What did well? Does it mean that we need to design within that product category or drop that product category completely? But then we also do a lot of user testing. We might develop some samples and have internal users and then some of our VIP clients test out, as well as benchmark against others, and then also look for inspiration. And I think a lot of that comes from where we are in the design world for a leather, as well as when we're visiting third-party manufacturers and everything in between. So obviously design can come everywhere, but data has got to have a huge role within there.
It's really interesting when you said VIP customers. So like when you're looking for people to test this out and like what's going to work, internal is obviously going to be easy. It's easy to get your team to look at something. Do you maybe want to tell us a bit more about how you get the product ideas in front of those VIP customers to get their feedback?
Sure. So in the beginning, we were heavy within wholesale, less about e-com retail space. And so a lot of the times you could show product at the show and talk to the stores that represent your brand. And I think that's translated now into what we do, where we are either talking to similar people, similar clients, or people that have just been a part of the brand and love the brand. So we can send them images or we can send them actual physical samples to test and give us some feedback on.
And with such a broad catalog of products from bags to gloves and furniture, we've talked a little bit around the data sources you look at to decide we need to go off and create another product or another version of an existing product. How does it look, or is there a similar process for deciding that something needs to be removed from the catalog?
Yeah, I particularly get very passionate about that. So I love tracking the life cycle and the sales of items. And so there was actually something where we had a really popular briefcase that had been popular for years. And I was tracking the sales and noticing, well, those sales are actually going down. So what we did was go back to the drawing board and say, well, we all were passionate about this bag. Has it reached its limit, or is there something that we need to do? And what was great was we went back and redesigned the bag, relaunched, and saw those sales go up. I mean, they just flew through the roof. So there's one part to discontinuing product, which is going to happen, or colors. But then there's another where you have to take into consideration, is this something that we're passionate about? And does it just need a version 2? And so I think there's a combo, but you should definitely be tracking those sales and feedback from your customers.
One of like the most common things I hear from brands though is, okay, we have a great idea and then we take it to actually bring this to life and things get stalled, it gets delayed. I thought it was going to launch this month and it ends up launching 3 months after I thought it was going to. So how do you make sure that you have everyone there that needs to be a part of this and like you're putting the right people, the right resources in place to make sure that you're not only bringing that idea to life, but you're doing it in kind of like a predictable and on-time way?
I can't say that we found the exact answer because it's difficult. And then the world pandemic happens, right? So factories shut down. So there's things outside of your control. But so that's where I think brands should be looking into product development managers, because you do want somebody that is looking at all of this. But this is also where I decided our team needs to come together on a sprint method. So we do a lot of brainstorming ahead of time. We do a huge presentation of ideas where people then vote, and then we're able to prioritize. From there, that's where we decided, okay, we'll do a 12-week sprint. And at the end of that, we had so many samples to be able to present and show. But it doesn't stop there. You need to make sure that your marketing understands which seasons are launching, what items are launching when, is production ready, how are we going to do this? And then think all the way through to fulfillment, returns. What is that going to look like for that item? So it's a lot, and really it speaks back to strategy. You have to be thinking about the strategy overall.
Yeah. And Audrey, a conversation that you and I had before, we were talking about the pandemic and obviously being in leather bags and having that be such a strong product for you. The pandemic was not kind to those types of purchases. Did that change product development's approach for this year and kind of like going forward with how you're thinking about what comes next and what you build?
So much. So our bread and butter were briefcases and travel bags originally. Those sales decreased significantly during 2020. Nobody was going into work or traveling on a plane. So what was so interesting was that we decided, instead of looking at all of our numbers, we threw that all out the window and said, now we're going to develop and design and throw all of the ideas at the wall and see what sticks. And I actually think it brought some levity to the situation. We were able to talk through, what do we need to do? How do we still stay in front of our customers? How do we still showcase natural leathers? And that's where this spring we were actually the idea came for dining chair and tablescape options. And so that's where the ideas came in that we just launched with placemats, table settings, napkin rings. And I don't know that we would have had that idea if we hadn't had the situation that came across.
Sure. I mean, and it sounds like your team was primed to be able to pivot into something like that because of the fact that you had the sprint methodology, the agile planning methodology. Whereas before, if something like this happened and you were in that wholesale model of, depending on big purchases, it probably wouldn't have gone as smoothly when you guys were trying to make that pivot.
Yeah, I think it was important. And part of what I've learned from agile methodology or sprint methodology was having the same goal all together. And that was a big deal for everybody to say, we need more. We need to make sure that we are a part of our customers' lives still. And from there, design flew, and we were just able to see all of these ideas. So exactly to your point, it was a really incredible experience and a good thing to come out of. What are we going to do?
And Audrey, when you're talking about a sprint, just for people who are maybe listening who aren't familiar with the terminology, do you want to quickly define what a sprint is and how long of a sprint do you use at Moore and Giles?
Yeah, so I'm not as knowledgeable on it, but from my knowledge, a sprint is going to be a set amount of time. You come together with a goal in terms of what needs to happen. And so typically in tech, sprints are much shorter periods of time because you want to be able to accomplish something. And you're really trying to take a complex project and move it into bite-sized pieces. For us, physical product takes a longer amount of time. And so I established a 12-week lead time because any of the ideas that we presented and prioritized as what we wanted to see, I knew they were going to take a few rounds of sampling to get where we really wanted to be able to show everyone. So ideally, it would be we see the idea and it comes in a week later. Obviously, with physical product, it's just not going to work that way. And leather, natural leather, is amazing and volatile, and you have to design around it. So there's some challenges involved there.
Audrey, I'm going to try to do my best here to wrap up everything that we said into some top tips for everyone. So when you're looking at product management or product development, there is a lot to learn from the tech and the SaaS space that can be applied to e-commerce. And in your opinion, we're actually seeing the move to that type of methodology in e-commerce. And the reason we need that is because there needs to be this glue between like products actually being created, being able to get out there in the market through the marketing team. And in your specific case, it's kind of the glue between the design team, the creation, and the marketing team when it gets out there to launch. And being able to work in a sprint or an agile environment, it's not necessarily the framework per se, but it's being able to work towards a common goal and being able to put a timeline on everything so that you can start to think about your lead times and everything that needs to go in from concept all the way to launching something. And in terms of the actual launch itself, being able to put a date there and potentially a pre-sale. And when you're operating with dates, make sure you are absolutely as transparent as you can possibly be with your customers. It's great to use a date, but if you miss that, it can be a catastrophe. Anything that you want to add to the top tips for our listeners?
Oh, you said that better than I could.
All right. Is there anywhere where people can maybe connect with you further? Twitter, LinkedIn, a blog, anywhere where people can follow along?
Sure. I'm on LinkedIn. On Medium, I posted an article about the sprint process for physical product. And obviously follow Moore and Giles on Instagram and mooreandgiles.com.
I saw that you guys have a podcast now too.
Yes, we do. Nothing to hide. Favorite title of a podcast.
So perfect. Well, we'll make sure that all those ways to connect with Audrey make it into the show notes as well, so you guys can continue the conversation. I follow Audrey on LinkedIn, and she posts some fantastic content there, so make sure you follow her there. Audrey, thanks so much for joining us today. This was an amazing episode.
Sure. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Tim.